Hello everyone, welcome to my philosophy podcast. Today I'd like to talk about vegetarianism and environmentalism. And these are very, very controversial and complex subjects. And at the outset I want to say very clearly that I personally take a great interest and heartfelt interest in the beautiful natural environment of this planet, and well, any planet really. I love nature, I love clean air, clean water. To see the Amazon rainforest disappearing breaks my heart. To see animals being mistreated breaks my heart. To see some of the ways that factory farmed animals are treated is horrendous and unnecessary in my opinion. You know, just to save 1 cent on each burger or whatever it is, it's horrendous, it's disgusting. And you know, so that is where I'm coming from. But on the other hand, I think that vegetarianism, veganism, and environmentalism have become a kind of religion for some people, because in a way we've had a kind of, as a culture in the West, we've had what Friedrich Nietzsche called the death of God. Now, he wasn't talking about an actual deity dying. What he was talking about was the death of this concept of God as it was generally thought about and as it was generally accepted. I mean, at one time, most people in the West, in Europe at that time, accepted pretty much most of the tenets of Christianity and believed in God, believed in angels, believed in all sorts of things like this. And after the scientific revolution and the Enlightenment and so on, many people lost their fairly childish and naive faith in some of these ideas. A lot of people, and a lot of people who haven't even admitted it to themselves, have really lost that faith. And to the extent where they're not even really open to ideas about God or angels or so on, which is a bit of a shame in my opinion, but it's understandable and is a natural phase that I think people need to go through in their spiritual development. I think there is this phase where everyone goes through, where they just accept the religion of their parents and their society, and that's that phase that maybe the whole of Europe, the whole of the Western world was in before the Enlightenment. And then there's the phase where we go against that and we start to see all the flaws in it, and there's what's called in psychology a reaction formation. So people go the other way, become very cynical about these ideas and dismiss them. And again, because we want cognitive closure, which I talked about on another video, we don't really want to keep that door open, even if we're not really sure. We'd rather close it, and then we can feel more at peace and more certain about our position. So then we more or less go into atheism or nihilism. Nothing has meaning. And naturally enough, that's actually ultimately quite an uncomfortable place to be, nihilism. And a human being can't really stomach that for long. So at some point, people start looking for something to believe in. And so in that sense, I think this is what environmentalism and, kind of vegetarian come animal worship almost. This is what the role they are playing now for many people in our Western societies. I think that rather than nihilism, they've gone into this kind of nature worship, let's call it, as a general thing. Nature worship with a kind of with a deity is nature, and the anti-deity or the devil or whatever is capitalism, humanity, industrial humanity at least, not Native Americans of course, as they were, technology, and all this kind of thing. So I really think that if you look at some of the arguments that come up for vegetarianism or for, animals should not be eatenism, animals should not be killed. It's really quite striking how poor so many of these arguments are philosophically, in terms of logic, in terms of how they hang together, in terms of how much sense they make. They're constantly trying to prove that human beings either don't need meat or shouldn't eat meat, physically it's not good for them, or weren't designed to eat meat, or, there's so many different avenues where they try to find proof for their religion, or it's a religion of sorts. And there's so many propaganda, what I would call vegetarian propaganda websites, and people buy into this. And why do they buy into it? Because it's actually relieving them from nihilism. They're escaping from nihilism, from believing nothing really matters. Oh my God, thank goodness I can care about something. I can care about nature. And it's good to care about nature. And it's good to care about animals. But I think then they go to this reaction formation. So they go from not caring about anything, finding something, yes, I can care about nature. Oh God, thank God, I can care about animals. I love nature. And then they get this reaction formation where they go pretty extreme into this nature worship. And of course, for them, human beings are not nature. Often. Some of them are aware that human beings are nature. And in a sense, so is industrial civilization. It's a natural phenomenon. So that's my explanation of why people go to this extreme. To the extent where what I find quite ironic sometimes is they're really quite aggressive and unpleasant to other human beings. And that is quite odd, I think, to on the one hand be, saying that you are such a caring individual, and then using that kind of story to give yourself an outlet really to be horrible to other people. I mean, this is a similar kind of psychology that we see in terrorists, religiously motivated fundamentalist terrorists, where they somehow got this idea in their head that by killing people and maiming people and sending children to their early death and causing wars and causing immense suffering, that somehow they're acting on behalf of our loving deity, assuming there is one. I tend to assume there is one. It's madness. But this is the way religions affect people. They become very central to our identity and to our lives, to the extent where we can't even think reasonably anymore, sometimes, some of us. And this I see in these arguments put forward for veganism or vegetarianism, and indeed in a lot of the general environmental debates, where people are willing to accept very, very poor arguments just because they fit in with their religion. That's not to say that this religion is wrong. I'm not to judge that as a philosopher. I'm not to judge ultimate values. That's for me personally in my own heart. As a philosopher, what we can judge very well and very robustly is how good, how rational and sound and logical and reasonable and sensible are the arguments that are being put forward. That's all we can really judge. And I think if we do that, we look at a lot of these arguments, they're bizarrely bad. I mean, I'm sure that over time the nature worship community will come up with better arguments. Perhaps when they have nature worship university courses with nature worship philosophers, and when this religion becomes a bit more formalised, and I think there will be a lot better arguments put forward. But if you look at the arguments as they exist at the moment, many of them are really poor. And this tends to make me think, well, this is more of a belief system, this is more of a religious system, that people are willing to accept this as reasonable, these arguments. And there's nothing wrong with that, as long as it's recognised that that's what it is. But what is dangerous is where people want to pretend that a belief system or an emotional feeling or a religion is actually based in reason when it isn't, and based in strong philosophy when it isn't. Because the problem with that is it damages reason itself. That is the problem. And reason itself is one of the few things that stand between us and disaster in general, I would say, in this world. And so reason itself can become contaminated by our need to believe, our need to have something in our lives similar to a religion or something bigger than ourselves, like the planet, like the animal world. So I would ask you, as someone who's interested in philosophy, to try to always apply, even to your most sacred beliefs, to try to apply the same rigorous standards of critical thinking to your own beliefs. as you would to someone who you don't agree with. And in fact, to those who you don't agree with, try to see the best in their arguments, because often that will help you actually to see the worst in them. So that's my podcast for today. Thank you so much for supporting this podcast, and hope you will come back again. Bye for now.